Welcome back to the Strategy Edge podcast with none other than brand interventionist and author of 10 Reasons Why CX NPS Programs Fail, Christopher Roberts. Welcome back, Chris.
Hi, Keithana.
Over the last 9 episodes, we have explored 8 critical reasons why CX or Net Promoter Score programs do not succeed. And Chris, you have provided solutions for each of them. So, in this 10th episode, which I believe is a very, very critical one, we will discuss why CX NPS programs fail, which is one of the downsides of organizations fixating solely on the score. And you did touch upon it in episode 9 as well. So, before we begin, I would like to ask you, our listeners, is your organization treating your NPS or your CX as a mere survey metric, or is it embracing it as a disciplined practice for transformative growth? Think about it as we delve into the intricacies of the NPS discipline with Chris, where insights lead to prioritized recommendations, actionable top down and bottom up strategies, detractor callbacks, and a direct link to account reviews. And this, I believe, will help us discover how Chris has helped his clients achieve increases of over 80 points in very, very difficult categories through a strategic NPS approach. This is a crucial episode that redefines how we perceive and implement NPS in the business realm. So, to begin with, Chris, how do most organizations treat NPS in your experience?
NPS became very famous years and years ago, and it still is, obviously, because, more than 85-90% of brands use NPS in some shape or form. And people have this view that they're doing NPS, and that's a bit of a fallacy, and I'll explain that in a second. But there is an obsession with the score because it's a very simple metric to calculate. Sadly, I've got to tell you that most people just focus on the score, and that is actually terrible. You feel like saying it's not just about the score, it's much, much more than that. And let me explain this to you via an example. So, around 15 years ago, when I went for my NPS certification to Miami, there was also an NPS conference there, and there was a speaker there from Aviva Insurance. And I'll never forget a slide he put up. In that slide, he had this pig that was sitting on a weighing scale. And the heading of the slide said, "You can't fatten a pig by weighing it." What he was trying to say was that, if you want the pig to get fat, or, if you want an NPS score to increase, you've got to feed it. You can't just keep weighing it. You just can't keep doing scores and research and saying, this is our score and this is our score and so on and so forth. And the trouble is that most times when people think they are doing NPS, what they mean is they've just asked the question. So it's plonked as part of an existing survey that has 40 other questions. It is something that they measure, but they don't really take any action against, which we see a lot of, right? Or, alternatively, they subscribe to an industry-wide benchmarking study. And they go, oh, wow, isn't this good? We are in the top quartile, we are in the bottom quartile, we are in the middle quartile. But what does that actually tell you? So in that NPS score, it tells you that your competitors are doing better than you or worse than you, right? Across key attributes, you might say, okay, they're doing better than you, than worse. Supposing it's a financial service, you might say, oh, their investment returns are better, their sales reps are better, our customer service is worse. And you go, yeah, but that's all interesting, but what can you do with it? Because just by knowing that someone is better than you can't control what they do. It doesn't really help you increase your own score. It might help you focus on a score. So for me, NPS is about asking the question and understanding in a deep sense insights that will help you become better, right? So benchmarking by itself means nothing if you don't take action against your results and you don't have insights to really inform you in terms of how you can deliver a better experience. And that's unfortunately what I see, a big focus on the score. Let me give you another real life example, right? We signed up this client. They were the biggest wholesaler in their category in Australia and New Zealand. And when they signed up, the CEO had gone for a conference somewhere who said, NPS is a key metric. And he said, "Oh, Chris, I want to measure my NPS." And I said, "Yeah, sure, we can do it for you." And I said to him, "It's best practice with NPS that if someone is a detractor, you call them back." So he said, "Why?" I said, "Well, because they can damage your brand. They might be thinking about leaving you, and you can, retain that client and so on and so forth." He said, "Chris," he said, "trust me," said, "my NPS score is going to be really good." And he was quite tall, taller than me. And he put his arm around my shoulder, took me outside his office, and he said, "Here's the head of supply chain. Here's the head of marketing. Here's the head of sales." He said, "I have my finger on my pulse. I'm sure my NPS score will be great. I just want to score." And sadly, this is the mindset most people have. And they're largely flying blind, because I'll tell you what happened next. So I said, okay, I thought to myself, he doesn't want an alert for detractors. I'll get the alerts coming to me. Now, they had two clients, which are the largest supermarket chains in Australia, two clients. So each of those two clients made up around 30% of their total revenue, correct? Now, when we do NPS research, especially B2B, we actually look at different types of customers. We look at decision makers, influencers, end users as an example, right? In this particular situation, for one of those supermarket chains that made up around 30 to 35% of their total revenue, the decision maker was not just a detractor, they were a militant detractor. They were very upset. Okay. Now, the strange thing is, you'll say, hey, well, such a big client, how come they were upset? Didn't they have a good account manager? They had a really good account manager. But the trouble was that account manager was so good and so nice that nobody wanted to, on a face to face confrontation basis, tell that account manager that there were serious issues at play. However, when people get a survey which they think is kind of anonymous, then they become keyboard warriors and the whole truth came out. So I got the alert, and I rang the CEO of this business, and I said, "Hey, just thought I'd ring you up and let you know XYZ." I gave him the name, is a detractor, and this is what they're saying about you, right? And there was deadly silence on the call, right? And I thought the call had disconnected or something. So I said, "Are you there? Are you there?" And he said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "I just figuratively fell off my chair." He said, "Okay, cool. Send me the details." To his credit, he took his entire exec team, went and met that decision maker and saved the account. And he believed that NPS saved his business, right? And he recommended us to many other people based on this. And that is the benefit of treating it like a discipline. I've just given you one part of the discipline, calling detractors, but that is what you can get, because trust me, just by getting a score, you don't really know what's happening in the business.
Right, absolutely. And I'm glad you even spoke about the insights. So, for listeners who haven't watched our previous episodes, do check out episode 5, where Chris explains about the criticality of gleaning insights and insights that matter through your entire Net Promoter Score program. So, moving on, Chris, what do you think are the downsides of just focusing on the score?
Yeah, so one obvious downside which I touched on is if you focus on the score, the score is an end outcome. If you focus on the end outcome and you don't focus on the means towards achieving that end outcome, you're not going to improve. You're just going to look at your score. And by focusing on just that end outcome, going to your salespeople and say, "Hey, we need a high net promoter score," you create dysfunctional behavior. And that dysfunctional behavior can be something like they game the score. We've seen instances of that. Or they
Right.
go to customers and they bribe them, "We will give you XYZ, please give us a good score." Or they'll put up a sob story, "Please give me a good score because my bonus depends on it. I'll get into trouble if you don't give me a good score." All this stuff happens. So you get a score that's not even real. And instead of that, instead of focusing on the end score, if you had focused the means to achieving that score, you would have got a genuine good score that actually helps your business become better. Because the whole idea of this whole program is not the score. It's to have a strategic conversation with your clients where you go to them and you say, "You know what, we want to be worthy of recommendation. How are we going?" Okay, So some people will say to you, hey, you're going really well. And you listen to that and you say, well, let's share best practice, because life is a normal distribution, right? There'll be one product, one person, one salesperson, one service person who is really good at creating promoters. Let's find out who that is and let's share best practice. Then you have another group of people that are detractors, and typically they have something wrong that they've discovered. And how wonderful is that, right? It's not a negative thing. They're telling you something that's wrong with the business so you can actually improve your business, right? So that's the second conversation you have. And the third conversation is passive. So passives give you a 7 or 8. They think you're good. They just don't think you're great. Now the conversation with them is, what would it take for us to go from being good to great? And that's another great conversation. The moments of wonder that you can create. Now, all these things, that conversation is what improves the business, not the score. The score is an end outcome of all these things, right? And that's the biggest issue. When you focus on the score, you don't really improve your business. In fact, you could argue it's detrimental to the business.
Right. So, given that you've spoken so much about the importance of having a discipline, so what exactly do you mean by an NPS discipline?
Yeah. So, given that we just spoke about the pig on the weighing scale example, let me give you a human example, right? Imagine if you say, I'm going to the gym, and you go, yeah, that's great. You've ticked the box, I'm going to the gym. It's like I'm doing NPS. Now, when you go to the gym, what if the only thing you do is weigh yourself? So you go on the weighing scale and you weigh yourself, and then you come back home. That's tantamount to just focusing on the score and
Yeah.
measuring yourself, right? Now, what's the discipline in terms of a gym, in terms of becoming more fit, right? So first thing you have to do is you have to go and measure your current state. Like, what's your weight? What's your waist? What's your BMI? What are your goals? What are you really trying to do? Are you trying to win a marathon or get fit for a marathon? Are you trying to lose weight? What exactly is your goal? You work out your goal first, and then you say, okay, what's my structured approach to get there? So, which machines do I have to spend time on, and how much time do I need to spend on each one? Right. That's the discipline. And then the next part of the discipline is ancillary to that. Like, what does my diet have to be? Do I need to have this supplement, that supplement? Do I need to cut this off? That's a discipline. And then the last part of the discipline is the regularity of it. Like, you can't say, oh, well, you know what, I go to the gym, and when did you go to the gym last? Oh, I went 6 months ago. That's not a discipline. So the discipline is you go to the gym every week, correct? That's a discipline. And that is what you need to do with NPS. It's not something you do once a year. It's not something where you just weigh yourself, you take action. So let me take you through, when I say discipline, what is that discipline, correct? The first is to get insights via your surveys. And there's two types of insights. One is you get insights via what we call relationship surveys, which is an overall rating of the brand, which covers your value proposition, your brand attributes, covers key touch points. And that is done periodically, once every 6 months, as an example, is good. Now, that gives you strategic insights. You might even ask questions about competitors in there, right, to get a sense of how you compare. And it also gives you insights in terms of what transactional or touch points you need to focus on next. And your touch point research has to be regular. So I've called the service center and I immediately get a survey. So what was that experience like? So that's the regular discipline. Or you might say you've got a new customer and we are onboarding, what was the onboarding experience like, even if it's a complicated B2B type scenario. Now, that's a discipline where you listen to customers and you take action. But let me get a bit more detail than that. You get the insights. Then what you do is you get all sorts of insights, right? And that's a problem in itself. And you have to be able to see the forest from the trees, which is, you have to say, apply the Pareto principle, and even go beyond that. If you apply the Pareto principle, what are the a handful of initiatives that if we did that, that would really improve our score more than anything else? Because you can't focus on everything. If you focus on everything, you're basically unfocused. And you could go a step further. What's the one thing we can do? And that one thing has to be not just at an overall brand level, but at a team level, at a contact center level, at a sales level, at a marketing level, at a supply chain level, and down to a team. So as granular as you can get, the better it is. Now,
Right.
once you get those recommendations, then you need to take action, correct? And you need to take action two ways: strategically, top down, where you get a cross functional team that says, okay, well, what are the big ticket items? What are the systemic issues that we need to work on? And then bottom up, which is at a team level, a service team level, a sales team level, a supply chain team level. Okay, what do we need to do, to improve, right? And that's the discipline, top down, bottom up. Then you need to call your detractors back for a variety of reasons, and that needs to be automatic. As soon as you identify a detractor, ideally you call them within 48 hours, because if they're a detractor, they're really upset, they're going through all these emotions, and timeliness is key, right?
Right.
Now, why do you call detractors back? You call detractors back, one is to potentially rescue the account, like the example I just gave before, right? Because they could be about to leave. And that's a huge revenue benefit. Imagine being able to identify someone who's about to leave, correct? The second thing is that they could spread negative word of mouth. Not only will they leave, they might actually stop 10 other people from becoming your clients, right? Okay.
Correct.
Now, the third aspect of this whole equation is that the conversation with detractors is so powerful because it tells you what you're doing wrong. And obviously, you don't know that you're doing it wrong, right? So they're giving you, ways to improve your business so you can use it to improve your business. So detractor callbacks is key. Now, this in a B2B environment, you need to link the NPS discipline to your account review process if you have one. So most B2B situations, they have an account review process where they meet their key accounts regularly, go through a set agenda item. One of the agenda item has to be the NPS feedback. So what are you saying? What is your team saying? What are your staff saying? Right? And what actions are we going to take against it? Now imagine if you did that as part of your account review process. One is you would get kudos for being open and transparent. The second thing is um, they would get a good sense of that you're listening to them and taking action. And you need to have a planned action plan as a result of this. Now, one of the things that is critical where things fall down, sometimes people do all this, but you need a good governance process. Have all these ideas coming top down, bottom up, detractor themes, account review process. You need a governance process that looks at all these initiatives and either accepts them, rejects them, or defers them, right? And it serves two purposes. One is they get visibility of the issues and the improvement actions, and you obviously get executive support, because if something is going to be a blocker in the way of doing things, the governance team can clear it out. And these discipline, even though I've covered it off in a few minutes, is what we've used to achieve, like, 60 plus points in B2C NPS increases and more than 80 points in B2B, in challenging categories, not easy categories to do.
Right. As we wrap up another very enlightening episode on the Strategy Edge podcast, we've learned that Net Promoter Score is more than just a survey metric. It's a disciplined practice that can lead to extraordinary results when approached strategically. But in our next episode, we dive into the most critical reason why many CX NPS programs fail, and which is understanding the economics of CX or NPS and how to earn leadership buy in. Discover why leadership buy in is the linchpin to a successful customer experience strategy, and how understanding the economics of your CX or NPS is paramount for sustained growth. Don't miss out on this crucial discussion with Christopher Roberts as we continue to unravel the secrets of mastering customer centric business strategies. Tune in again for episode 10. And thank you, Chris, once again for these wonderful insights.
Thank you, Keertana.